have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks, and I think we have Vicky Davis here. Vicky, are you there?
Yes,
this is called a last-minute scramble, folks.
My brain is not actually functioning yet, but I'm here.
Yeah, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We are literally having some technical problems this morning. Seems like every day it doesn't seem to fail anymore. It's kind of weird. But we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants this morning. I had a little bit of a difficulty getting a hold of Vicky, and I don't know what's going on with the Skype situation, but it was indicating she was not online, and so I kept trying to call. And then for some reason, I tried to call you on the phone, on the regular phone, Vicky, and I couldn't, I don't know, it just kept disconnecting. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, we had a power outage from about 4 a.m. till sometime after, well, I don't know when it came back on, but I was awake until about 6:30 waiting for the power to come back on, and I finally just fell asleep, and I didn't wake up until I did hear the phone ring. Oh, it rang a little bit, and I picked up my phone and looked at it, and went, holy cow.
Showtime. Yeah, I've never had a situation. I've been thankful. Now I don't want to say it. I don't want to jinx myself. But so far in all the years I've been doing this, I've never overslept. I've had a lot of board ops at RBN oversleep on me, and that was a source of frustration when we used to come on at 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. You do a lot of show prep, and then all of a sudden you couldn't do the show, and so that happened a lot actually. But thankfully, once we got the 11 a.m. Eastern time slot, somebody else had to do that for a while. I figured I paid my dues,
Yeah.
But we're kind of I don't know what's going on. It seems like all the equipment in the studio belongs to the same union because they've all decided to strike on the same day. I also this morning had a situation with the Telos box that we use to connect the mixing console to the phone line fail on me. It's been kind of acting a little flaky in previous weeks. It's actually not that old, and that's kind of what really frustrates me about it. Well, not the least of which is it's only a $700 piece of equipment.
Yikes.
And it decided to take a poop today. I cannot get the thing to act right, so I don't know what's going on with it. So I may end up having to send it back to the factory to have them do work on it. And I do have another one, the older one that I can hook up, but it requires cabling, and so that's going to be another day type of thing. It's not the kind of thing you can either do during a show or before the show. So unfortunately, what that means is we can't take calls today. But that's the thing. But we are here. It's the 24th of October, 2020. If you're listening at about 11:06 Eastern Time, then we are, in fact, live, even though we seems like we barely made it, Vicky.
We did. That was really seat of the pants.
Yeah.
Skin of the teeth.
Yeah. So, anyway.
But we can't miss the break because I have not had coffee yet.
Okay, yeah, I totally understand that. Well, I'll tell you what. We have a lot of things going on, as always. Another reason why I didn't really want to blow the whole thing off, because next week there'll be a whole new set of circumstances. I'm sure, as many things happen during a week today, it is remarkable. I mean, it really is remarkable. I remember back in the old days, people struggled to do shows like this to find enough material. And, they used to go and subscribe to magazines and things and look through the newspaper. And now we're struggling to keep from getting material. But we had the final presidential debate that took place on Thursday, and we got a little recap here for
President Trump and Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden face off in their final exchange on the 2020 campaign trail. The two candidates went head-to-head in Nashville, Tennessee Thursday night, with both debating on a number of issues currently pressing the American people. President Trump opened up the debate by touting his administration's response to the coronavirus and highlighting the great strides American companies are making to bring a swift end to the pandemic.
We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed. Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well, and we have numerous others. And then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
When speaking about health care, Biden said he would replace the Affordable Care Act with his own personal plan, arguing his policy would drive insurance competition.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. Will become Biden Care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen.
President Trump pushed back on his opponent's idea, stating his health care plan is a political ploy to attempt to bring socialism to the U.S.
When he says public option, he's talking about socialized medicine and and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroying your Social Security, and this whole country will come down.
The president went on to slam Biden for being a puppet for the left.
Now think about what he's saying there, ladies and gentlemen. He's thinking about destroying your Social Security and destroying your Medicare. In other words, he's thinking about. In other words, what Trump is saying there is that people are so dependent upon the government anymore that the whole country will come down if the government isn't there. Now, that is really a remarkable statement to say that that's where we are here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. That if the people don't have government programs, government spending, government funding, that the whole country will come down. How independent are we to be saying that?
I'd say very dependent.
Yeah.
Because most people aren't aware of all of the spending programs. They always think of Medicare, Medicaid, and those programs. Those are just the visible ones. Yeah. There's the economic development money that flows into the cities and counties. There's all the social welfare instruction programs that flow into the state and then that employ people, because they replaced real economic activity with social jobs. Mm-hmm. They don't generate any revenue themselves. They need to be funded by government. So I think it's probably a true statement.
Yeah, I think it may very well be a true statement, but my point is that people still think they live in a free country. You can't be free and be dependent upon the government. But yet, Trump, in that sense, he is just like any other politician. With the deficit spending, with the, hey, I want an even bigger stimulus. And I can remember back during the Reagan years how the national debt ballooned when Reagan was in office, and because it was the spin like money's going out of style. Republicans back then, huh?
On the military, Star Wars.
Yeah, well, on everything, on everything. They just went out of control, and people used to talk about the tax and spend Democrats. Well, the spend happy Republicans aren't any better, and that's the point.
Yes, you're absolutely right. They're not.
Anyway, continue with it.
Warning voters that his opponent wants to close up the country, threatening to destroy the national economy.
We're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
Throughout the course of the night, the president hammered down on the Biden family, accusing his opponent of accepting bribes from foreign entities.
But you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And, Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening. And it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people.
President Trump ended his remarks by reminding voters of why he ran originally back in 2016, wanting to fix America from the control of the radical left.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
Daniel Kitchen, One America News.
I don't know if you happen to catch that debate. I thought it was an interesting, as from a political perspective, it was entertaining in the sense that, I mainly tuned in because I wanted to know, pretty much have to when you do a show like this, but I wanted to know what they did with the mic thing. And, everybody was talking about the moderator and how fair she was. Even Trump, during the debate, commented to the moderator that he appreciated how she was handling the thing. And One America News praised her for being fair. But to be honest with you, I didn't think she was that great. She interrupted Trump multiple times. Every time he was trying to say something about Biden's corruption, she ran interference. She kept interrupting. And then, she did give him a chance, both of them a chance to follow up and everything. But I wasn't really that impressed with her, to be perfectly honest with you about it.
I don't know. Maybe somebody told Trump, you got to behave yourself.
Well, they threatened to cut the mic, and my first impulse was to say he should just pull out, when, they say that they're going to cut the mic on you. I mean, you're not allowed to talk. I figured they'd be cutting it all the time. I did notice there were twice that they shut his mic off. They did not shut Biden's off at all that I noticed. And so it was still an exercise, but it was a little bit more civil and as far as them not talking over each other. But the situation with Biden's son Hunter has really exploded, Vicky, and it's something that really is a scandal that keeps on churning. Now, whether or not it'll have any impact on the election, I don't know how it wouldn't really. Because
it should. Steve Bannon said, that what they need to do is pull Biden's security clearance. He shouldn't have a security clearance, and he shouldn't be. He should.
He's a national security
threat. The election.
Yeah, he's absolutely compromised. He's absolutely compromised. This is a total pay-for-play scandal, just like the Clintons were doing. They should have never had national security clearances either. Joe Biden is on the take, and we've talked about how there are laws against the wife of a political candidate from being able to receive foreign money and all that, but the laws they don't preclude other relatives, and so Biden is simply using his son as a way of laundering the money coming in, and he's literally on the take. It's almost like, you remember during the Clinton administration when he was selling out the Lincoln bedroom for favors?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, and that was somewhat of a scandal back then, and it should have been. But, now we know that was just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the Clintons were as corrupt as the day is long, and it's emerging that the Bidens are just the same way. Not really surprising to me that they don't have any integrity. I don't know why anybody would be surprised, I guess. But One America News had an interview with Rudy Giuliani describing some of the things that were on this hard drive. For those that have been listening hiding under a rock, all of this latest Biden stuff came from a hard drive, which Hunter Biden apparently, and we now know it was Hunter Biden because they have the receipt that he signed going to the computer store, the local computer shop. He dropped off this computer, and on it had all this stuff on the hard drive. The store owner tried to contact him afterwards to come get his computer, and he never showed up. He didn't pick it up. And so then the store owner, or I think it's the owner, he noticed there were some things on the hard drive that were, had shades of illegality. So he contacted the FBI, I believe it was, and he turned it over to the FBI. By the way, I wanted to correct one thing that I said last week. That I mentioned last week that that he turned it over to Steve Bannon. It wasn't Steve Bannon, it was Rudy Giuliani that he turned it over to. So he turned it over to the FBI first, but then he had copied it. He made a copy of the hard drive. The FBI didn't do anything with it, so he gave it to Rudy Giuliani. And and now we have it come out right before the election. But anyway, One America News did an interview with Rudy describing some of the things that were on the hard drive, which includes roughly around 50 images, including some of the minors. But there are emails, there are images, including some with minors, illicit content, ladies and gentlemen. And so he's telling the story here.
Hard to tell whether he did display himself or he didn't. You've got both versions here. But it is clear that he created an unsafe environment for the kids. So I went back and I looked at the photos. And there are what I would describe as an inordinate number of photos of underage girls. And then there are a large number of pornographic photographs showing him doing things like FaceTiming naked, taking pictures of himself naked in a mirror, walking around and very, very prominently displaying his crack pipe or smoking crack, or other photographs showing what he does in the home, including very often smoking crack. So you put that all together, and this unsafe environment for the kids. Well, John Wright, he did create an unsafe environment for the kids. He was doing that at home. Well, Bernie Kerik and I saw this. Mm-hmm. We called two detectives who specialized in child endangerment, and they said that they really had no choice but you have to disclose this. I said, well, it's already disclosed to the FBI. They said, yeah, but you have no indication the FBI has done anything with it. And I said, well, then okay, well, then there can't be any harm if we disclose it to the Delaware police, because they're the police right on the site. They're the ones who should have gotten this in the first place. So we called them. The very next day we drove down there. We handed them this, plus maybe 15 or 20 more other examples like this. And then we handed them a number of photographs of underage girls, and then a number of photographs displaying what he does in the home, which would give some support to what he's saying here about being naked and smoking crack. And the photo library is filled with pictures like that.
Now, these photos of the girls, is there any indication how he obtained them? Were they sent to him? Did he take?
You mean the photographs of the underage girls?
Right. Did he take these pictures? Were they sent to him?
I'm not. Right. I didn't have them long enough to. I mean, as soon as I saw them, I immediately looked at this and I said, we got to report them. Mm-hmm. And have not really analyzed them to determine who took them, The simple fact is they're there, and they're there in great abundance. The one thing you can be sure of when you see the photos is he was creating an unsafe environment for children, because he's walking around the house smoking pot. He's walking around the house with no clothes on. He's walking around the house taking pictures of himself in mirrors. Children live in that house. He's living with children. And at least the therapist had some notion that he was doing it in front of the child. I can't sort all that out. I can't investigate all that. But the FBI should have investigated it 2 years ago. And I think it's inexcusable that they didn't.
Okay. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Vicky, but the Gateway Pundit had reported that approximately 1/3 of the explicit photos of minors in Hunter Biden's laptop were of the same 14-year-old girl, who is one of his relatives. She's actually a relative. They say not only were there inappropriate photos of the child on her own, but Hunter Biden was in some of them with her. I guess there's photos of her being topless as well. So there could very well be crimes committed here. I'm not one to say one way or the other. That would be something for investigators to sort out. But this is very damning for Hunter, and certainly for Joe, for not even acknowledging. He's just continued. The only denial he's issued is kind of a blanket denial, and he hasn't really, and that was mainly, I think, about the foreign interests. But this is going to be interesting to see. And it may be part of the reason why they wanted to do so much early voting. Maybe they had some idea some of this was going to come out.
Oh, good thought. Yeah. Yeah, by the time it came out, most people voted already.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that some people have been asking the question, well, what about all the people that already voted? What if they change their mind? Guess what, folks? If you've already voted and you decide to change your mind, you're SOL, baby.
Huh.
There's nothing you
Has
can do.
Has anybody called for an independent counsel?
No. And I have a feeling, and what I'm worried about is if Trump wins, and I think he will at this point, not even because of this. I just think the people are tired of violence and rioting, and if they have any sense, they're going to reject the mafia type of thing where they're trying to muscle the country into voting for the Democrats. I was talking to a colleague of mine about this, Vicky, and I think you and I have talked on the show about this as well. I just don't understand who is doing strategy for this party. Who is doing strategy for the Democrats? Whoever it is, they need to be fired. Because I can't think of any reason why you would vote for a party that, endorses or embraces, or at the very least doesn't condemn widespread rioting. Why would you pick one of the least popular candidates? Milquetoast Joe. You have a populist movement that's burgeoning across the country. Okay, everybody wants somebody that's not status quo. That's why Donald Trump got elected in the first place. Is he wasn't somebody who was status quo. He was a Washington outsider who was a little bit radical, certainly unorthodox, but he wasn't somebody who was the status quo. And that's what I think a lot of people liked about him, and the fact that he was saying things that other politicians in the status quo who represent the status quo weren't saying. So you got this burgeoning populist movement, and who does the Democratic Party, rather than trying to find somebody like that for their side who represents somebody who's on the outside of the Beltway, somebody who will be a fresh thinker, shall we say? No, let's just put some old dude in there that's been there for 47 years.
A proven liar. Totally corrupt. If the Republicans had chosen the Democrat candidate, they could not have done a better job.
It's unbelievable. So, of course, when this all came out, the whole thing is the media is trying to claim that it's Russian disinformation. Because anything, of course, that doesn't fit their narrative or their choice in political candidates must be the Russians, Vicky.
Yes. Yeah.
But
those Ruskies are very pesky.
Oh, they're very resourceful. I tell you what, they do a lot. But that whole narrative was pretty much shot down by the Director of National Intelligence.
It's funny that some of the people that complain the most about intelligence being politicized are the ones politicizing intelligence. And unfortunately, in this case, it is Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, who, as you pointed out on Friday, said that the intelligence community believes that Hunter Biden's laptop and the emails on it are part of some Russian disinformation campaign. Let me be clear. The intelligence community doesn't believe that because there's no intelligence that supports that. And we have shared no intelligence with Chairman Schiff or any other member of Congress that Hunter Biden's laptop is part of some Russian disinformation campaign. It's simply not true. And this is exactly what I said I would stop when I became the Director of National Intelligence, and that's people using the intelligence community to leverage some political narrative. And in this case, apparently Chairman Schiff wants anything against his preferred political candidate to be deemed as not real, and is using the intelligence community, or attempting to use the intelligence community, to say there's nothing to see here. Don't drag the intelligence community into this. Hunter Biden's laptop is not part of some Russian disinformation campaign, and I think it's clear that the American people know that.
So there you go. There's John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence. You would think that would stop the media from blaming the Russians. But no, they continue because, hey, why not?
It's the narrative they want.
There you go. That's exactly right. All right, tell you what, we're going to take the bottom of the hour break, and Vicky's going to get some coffee, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Stay with us, folks. This is Govern America.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
Welcome back to the broadcast. This is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It continues to be the 24th of October, 2020. The website for the show is governamerica.com. That's governamerica.com. My email address is radio@governamerica.com if you'd like to get in touch. Once again, radio@governamerica.com. And by the way, I wanted to say real quick, again, that we are not able to take calls today because of our telephone hybrid is kind of on the fritz. I got a backup, but it's going to take a little bit of work to get it hooked up. So bear with us, folks. Doing the best we can here. Go ahead and, Vicky, give your information out, if you could, please.
Okay, my newer website is thetechnocratictyranny.com. My email address is eyeswideoopen@channelingreality.com. And channelingreality.com is the name of my older website, where I have lots of research still.
Yeah, we're talking about the Biden family legacy of corruption here. And I don't want to spend the whole show on it, obviously, but it is a big story. It's a really big deal, especially going into a presidential campaign, not just because of the obvious potential criminality and the fact that it's an election season, but it's a big deal because of the photos and documents like this exist. The parties involved are subject to blackmail by anyone who's in the possession of them. Now, before the break, we were talking about an interview that Rudy Giuliani gave with One American News. And they were talking about some of the emails that were found on the drive, the deals they indicate, and the fact that Hunter was bitter about his dad taking half the money he earned on the deals that Joe facilitated for Hunter.
I mean, the villain here is Joe Biden, not Hunter. Hunter describes the relationship, so you don't have to have any ambiguity about it. You don't have to take my word for it. This is Hunter Biden. This is to one of the siblings, I believe, sounding kind of bitter about what he was put through. He says, "I love all of you, but I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family. For 30 years. It's really hard.
Okay, I want to stop it right there. He said he paid for everything for this entire family for 30 years. So the question then becomes, How long has this been going on? Has it been going on for 30 years? Has Joe Biden been on the take? Has he been selling access to himself and to his policies?
Well, he was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I do have those 3 New World Order speeches that Joe Biden gave on the floor of the Senate.
So it raises a lot of interesting questions, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. I was going to do more research on that.
Yeah. Getting back to
see what I could find out.
Sorry, I keep thinking you're done. Let me back it up just a smidge. Okay.
Like Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. What does that mean, half the salary? That's
okay, let me back it up there because we missed a little bit of it, and I think it's a critical point.
30 years. It's really hard. But don't worry, unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. What does that mean, half the salary? That's half the money that Joe was making possible for him because nobody's really going to pay him a salary. I mean, Mykola Zlochevsky did not hire Hunter Biden. You would have to think Mykola Zlochevsky was a fool. Hunter Biden couldn't do anything for him. The guy who could fix the case for him was Joe. That's worth $14 million. Not Hunter. Hunter never even showed up in Ukraine. Now, you got to be a fool and an idiot to not realize that this was a bribe to Joe Biden so that when the government of Ukraine came after the business, Joe would intervene and pressure the president of Ukraine to drop the case. That's what he was pressuring the president of Ukraine to do. It wasn't just about Hunter. It was about saving Mykola Zlochevsky, who was paying the bills. Paying the bills for Hunter, paying the bills for Joe.
Well, they're calling it a Russian disinformation plot, but I don't. I'm a former intel officer. I've never seen a Russian agent go to the FBI and tell them what the evidence was before they conducted their operation.
Well, I mean, did the Russians create these texts? The Bidens haven't denied any of these texts. I haven't heard them say once. They haven't said that. They haven't said this text about dividing the money half and half is not true. They haven't said that. There's another memo, I think you've already used this one, where it says 10% for the big guy.
Right. Do you believe that big guy is Joe Biden?
I don't believe it. I know it. So stupid. I look like some kind of naive left-wing fool who's willing to believe anything the New York Times writes. Of course it's the big guy. Now, you want additional proof of it? 2 or 3 emails later, Hunter Biden is asking for keys to the new office they're going to have. Now think about this. The new office in this wonderful partnership between the Bidens and the Chinese communists. And this guy's running for president, and his family were partners with the Chinese communists, getting $10 million a year and $1 million on the side for Hunter in the engagement letter. But it does say in the second letter that was hidden, the first one doesn't have his name in it, the contract. You get to the second letter, it says 10% 2H for the big guy. You go 2 emails later, and you find Hunter ordering the keys for the new wonderful office that they're going to share with the Chinese communists. And the first 2 people he orders keys for are Joe Biden and Jill Biden. And then James and Sarah. So I have no doubt.
Where's this office?
Well, this is a new office they're putting together for the Hudson West Corporation,
for Hudson
which
West.
is the partnership of the Chinese communists and the Biden family, of which Joe is clearly the big guy. And as you know, one of the participants in that, one of the lesser participants, has already told Fox News, has given an affidavit, and I believe it was questioned by the FBI, and identified Joe Biden categorically as the big guy.
I don't know if you have any comments so far. This hard drive is something that the FBI has had for 2 years, and for 2 years they've sat on it and apparently not investigated it at all. What a surprise!
Yeah, they've got to clean out the FBI. Well, the FBI, they're all in it together because what they were doing in the Ukraine, they've done with the Chinese money. They have done here. They've done it all over the world because of the Agreement for Global Systems. You know, in the information that Rudy Giuliani brought forward in this with this laptop, they were talking about a company called Sinohawk.
Yes.
And Hawk is apparently Joe Biden.
Well, the way I heard it described, and we may even have a clip of that in here. I don't remember if that was one of the things that we clipped or not. But there was somebody described it as being Sino, of course, being the China part of things, and hawk being Bo Biden's favorite animal. That's how they described it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I was going to say about that.
What struck me about that is because when I was researching, trying to figure out what was going on in Meridian in the Boise area, there was a lot of building of this anomalous building in Boise that was done by a company called Black Hawk. And so the thought occurred to me, is that Conrad Black? You know, isn't that the name? Oh, no, Cofer Black. Cofer Black. Was it Cofer Black who was involved with doing all that anomalous building in Boise? I don't know. People tend to, if they have a name they like, they tend to make variations on it.
Good point. That's interesting thought, and a really interesting thought.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's huge, but the FBI is involved in it because in the cookie cutter plan, the turnkey plan that they have for transportation hubs and for workforce development, it's a formula plan that they're dropping into place everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I listened to a recent, well, I don't know if it's recent or not, but another interview with the economic hitman. What's his name? John?
I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think I know
who you're talking about.
Yeah, was the plan that the United States used, for economic development is exactly the same plan that the Chinese were using. Exactly. Except that when the countries couldn't, or the cities or whatever, couldn't make the payments, it wasn't our government that repossessed the property or took it back. It was the private company that actually got the money to do the development. In the China model, it's China that actually takes over control of whatever infrastructure it is.
So I think the name you're trying to think of is John Perkins?
Yes, John Perkins, yes. Okay. He just did a fairly recent interview. I guess he wrote a new book or something. I can't quite recall the name of it. I'll look it up next time we go on break. But what he described was exactly what they've said that China has been doing, which is almost exactly the same thing that our foreign affairs people have done to other countries around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And all of that together made me wonder, is the Great Reset to have China become the holder of the U.S. world reserve currency? Is that what the great game is that's going on?
It sounds plausible to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds very plausible to me. Certainly the animosity that we seem to have toward China at the moment would be an interesting thing to, I'm trying to reconcile how that would come about, except that if somebody like Joe Biden got back in there, I think the anti-China stuff would certainly melt away very quickly. And I think you would have a lot of recoupling going on.
Yeah, like China is our bestest buddy, just
Absolutely.
Like in 2011.
Exactly.
When
they were all coming over here.
Obama signed a, quote, partnership agreement on health care with China.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this. In fact, we've probably talked on the air about this a number of times. But the thing that was really mind-blowing to me was when we started seeing these delegations coming over here from China, the provincial leaders getting together with the state leaders here, and they were having big powwows, big business meetings. And I remember, Nancy Levant was hosting the show with me at the time, and we talked about, has the country been sold to China? I mean, what's going on here? Why are they buying up all of our real estate? I remember playing a clip from California on the show where they were talking about how these wealthy Chinese investors, are investing in properties in Los Angeles, and they like our universities and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? Who is allowing this to happen?
That's exactly
Do people
the same
not understand?
thing I thought when it was in the paper about the 23-member delegation of Communist Chinese coming to Boise to look at a facility, a location where they could invest.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what the hell? You bring in, a bunch of wealthy communist Chinese. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, and we know Chinese.
Our country goes communist. That's,
wealthy communist Chinese, that means Communist Party people. The leaders of the country. Because are we to believe now that all these normal people in China, all the rank and file, just ordinary citizenry, are all wealthy now? They have, they got this big capitalist economy over there. No, I don't think so. No,
it's state capitalism. And they've been moving our country towards state capitalism. I listened to the Indiana governor debate. One of the issues was workforce development. And what is workforce development? It is the government taking over training. And they use the same rhetoric, the exact same rhetoric about, we don't have enough skilled people. We've got to reskill these people. Well, they've been reskilling people for 30 years.
Yeah.
What it is that they get people in a loop of low-end, having a low-paying job, retraining for another low-paying job. It's a continuous loop. And it is a government program, and it is socialism.
John in the chat room says Chinese are buying up land in Australia and South America, too. Yeah, they're buying up land all over the world. I mean, Africa. Africa is a big area where they're buying up a lot of land.
Right, and these idiots, these free trade idiots say, well, they can't take the land back to China with them. Well, no, but they can bring, a big percentage of their population here and turn our country communist.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Bannon, he was on with Alex Salvi, and he's talking about what was going on with this hard drive. Because again, we're circling back around. Well, one other thing I was going to say about the Chinese before I get to that, though. When they turn the Empire State Building, the top, the lights on the Empire State Building, they turn different colors for different occasions. Breast cancer awareness, they might turn them pink. There's different occasions, and they have schedules. I mean, it's really very sophisticated how they do this. You can actually go on their website and see what the colors mean, on a given day, where they're turn the lights on the top of the Empire State Building a certain color. And they turned it yellow and red in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Maoist Revolution.
90th, I think it was.
Was it the 90th?
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, the anniversary, one of the milestones, and I'm looking at that, and I'm, my jaw's open. Like, why are we honoring the Maoist Revolution? Why are we celebrating a tyrannical, totalitarian system controlling the Chinese people? And not only controlling, but murdering, slaughtering. Images of Tiananmen Square come to mind. Why are we celebrating that? Obviously, we have a whole lot of people, both in government and in the private sector and in the corporate world, that are sellouts, that are globalist sellouts that don't care about individual liberty.
Right, they don't. And the way they don't is because of this whole climate change crap. Where they're trying to use the weather, something that you can't prove one way or another, to put people under a management system. It's all about management of the peasant class.
Yeah.
And we're all part of the peasant class. Don't kid yourself. You know, even people that are in the millionaire category are in the peasant class.
Yeah, I would say more than ever.
To the people who are doing this.
As inflated as the money supply has become, there's a lot of people that are millionaires, and millionaires are not what they used to be. I mean, it used to be at one time, and it wasn't that long ago, really, that people were thought of pretty much to be set for life if they were millionaires. Now it's just not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Okay, so going back to the conversation between Steve Bannon and Alex Salvi.
When we talk to critics about this latest bombshell from the New York Post, they'll look at the inception of these documents. They'll say, well, how do we know that these emails are verified or anything like that? But I know that
here's how you know. It's very simple. Rupert Murdoch, one of the biggest media moguls in the world, owns the New York Post. Rupert Murdoch's lawyers did the due diligence here. That's a fantasy. Rupert Murdoch's one of the most sophisticated, tough media entrepreneurs in the world. His company's market capitalization, I think, is $60 or $70 billion. Don't give me any nonsense of what these guys on the left say, Alex, about, oh, how do you know it's true? Here's why you know it's true. It's on the pages of the New York Post. And if you think it's not true, if the Bidens think it's not true, let them sue the New York Post. Because the New York Post will have full discovery on everything the Bidens have ever done. Not just on this hard drive, on every relationship they've had. Let's call the Bidens bluff. If it's false, then sue Rupert Murdoch and the New York Post and let them. They will countersue you. They will get discovery of every text message, every phone call, every email, and let's see where Joe Biden stands. Joe Biden will be ripped apart by that discovery, and that's why right now they're hiding behind Facebook and Twitter. There's 1,000 photographs. There's dozens of tapes, many of those sex tapes. There are 5 hours, I think, of audio. There's 40,000 emails and text messages. This is a treasure trove. Yeah. People can go through this for a long time. The American people are going to chance to see what Joe Biden's really like, what his character is about, what he does when he needs and wants money. He has sold out his country to the Chinese Communist Party.
This information was not well kept confidential. I mean, it very much so could have been used as blackmail against not only Hunter Biden, but Joe Biden.
This is just one hard drive off of this guy. He took trips they set him up with women in China. They know all about this. This is what the CCP does. It's called BGY, right? That's their phrase for it. They use the internet. They also use money, and they use women. Right? Or they use sex. This is what they do to compromise people. Joe Biden and his family have been compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. People in the intelligence apparatus know that. It's quite evident. You know, Kurt Campbell and Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken, who's his foreign policy advisors, right now have to come forward and say, what did you know? When did you know it? How did you know about James Biden, the brother? And by the way, he's a major character in this. James Biden, what did you know about Hunter being in China, cutting these deals, taking this money from really the most disreputable of all the CCP companies. I mean, China Energy is so controversial. The head, they think he's been executed. The number two guy that's names on the signature basis of the engagement letter was in federal prison, has now been extradited back to Hong Kong. These are the dirtiest guys of the dirtiest companies with the dirtiest political machine in the world, and that is who the Bidens are in business with.
And you bring up Tony Blinken, and I believe he's the individual who a lot of people are saying facilitated one of these meetings at the White House. Am I correct to say that?
Blinken's name's all over a bunch of these emails. Blinken's got to come forward, I think. Tony Blinken wants to be Secretary of State. I guess, hey, guess what? If Biden was ever to win, which he won't, but he's ever to win, your confirmation hearing just got a lot tougher, brother. You know, Kurt Campbell writes all these great things in foreign affairs about how they're going to, what they're going to do with China. Let me tell you what they're not going to do with China. They're not going to recouple. We're decoupling from the Chinese Communist Party, not from the nation of China and not from the decent, hardworking Chinese. I've dedicated my life to working with the Chinese people for their liberation from the slave labor that the Chinese Communist Party has them under. The most decent, hardworking people on earth. They're great people. They're enslaved by the Chinese Communist Party. And Joe Biden took blood money. They've taken blood money from the Chinese Communist Party to, one, sell out their nation, and number two, to sell out the Chinese people.
I absolutely agree with him on that.
Yeah, and I heard a report about the Uyghurs, what the Chinese are doing with the Uyghurs. They're putting them in camps that they call, get this, work workforce development camps. So China's following the global model. They're training those Uyghurs. It's workforce development.
Isn't that amazing? Wow. Well, I think the person that Rudy was referring to in the interview earlier, when we were playing the Rudy interview, was this guy named Tony Bobulinski is his name. Tony Bobulinski. He was a business partner with the Bidens, and he came out and held a press conference saying that Joe Biden knew everything, and yes, he was the big guy.
My name is Tony Bobulinski. I served as a lieutenant in the United States Navy with high security clearance. Since leaving the Navy, I've been involved in various successful businesses, both in this country and abroad. I am making this statement to set the record straight about the involvement of the Biden family, Vice President Biden, his brother Jim Biden, and his son Hunter Biden, in dealings with the Chinese. I have heard Joe Biden say that he's never discussed business with Hunter. That is false. I have firsthand knowledge about this because I directly dealt with the Biden family, including Joe Biden. I have also heard that Vice President Biden said on Tuesday that Senator Ron Johnson, the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, should be ashamed for suggesting that Biden family sought to profit from their name. Well, here are the facts I know, and everything I'm saying is corroborated by emails, WhatsApp chats, agreements, documents, and other evidence. I brought, for record, 3 phones that spanned the years 2015 through 2018. These phones have never been held by anybody else besides myself.
Okay, now these phones he's talking about text messages now. These are completely independent from the hard drive that we were talking about earlier. So this is independent information that you're getting from this Bobulinski guy. I tell you what, we're just about out of this hour. Let me go ahead and take the top of the hour break, and then we'll continue in hour 2. Stay with us, folks. A lot more to come. This is Government America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. Don't go away.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order. New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is the second hour of Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It continues to be the 24th of October. If I can spit it out here. 2020. Nice to have you along here as we are approaching Election Day in America, even though many people have already voted, as the media and other politicians like to point out. But we are very, very close now. And we are talking about the scandal, the problem that Joe Biden apparently has, and that's the problem that his chickens, his corrupt chickens, have come home to roost. These are the ones that lay the very poisonous eggs. 10 days out from the election, and he's got this whole thing blowing up in his face. Not the opportune time. As a matter of fact, I just came across an article here. Schumer pens letter to FBI, asks to wait until after the election for Hunter Biden investigation. Isn't that amazing? You know, it would be real nice if you and I, Vicky, had a chance to determine when an investigation is done. You know, if we had that kind of influence.
Yeah, everybody should have that option.
Yeah, in fact, maybe you might choose never if the investigation involved you or one of your friends or somebody you cared about. You know, what a joke. But, you know, the FBI, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in it, since this should have been investigated years ago. 2 years ago,
I don't think we have a Department of Justice.
And where's William Barr?
I think
where's
it's been destroyed.
Where is William Barr? That's the question I have. You know, if the election is won by Trump, he needs to fire Barr and get somebody in there, if he can get them through the confirmation process, that actually has some integrity. I don't know. Is there anybody in the legal profession anymore that has any integrity?
Rudy.
Well, you know, and people will dog on Rudy, but right now, you know, it's just like people were dogging on Alex Jones during the free speech debacle when he was being deplatformed by Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All these various companies got together in unison and decided to, across the board, deplatform Alex Jones. And I think I said on the broadcast, right now Alex Jones is a free speech guy. So you may not like Alex Jones, but right now you got to support him, because today it's Alex Jones, tomorrow it's everybody else. And in fact, now we're seeing massive, just across the board, deplatforming by a lot of different people who are truth tellers. Across the board. I mean, the online censorship is just mind-blowing. You know, I've lost so many Twitter followers, Vicky, because of people's accounts being deleted. It's unbelievable. I used to have, I think, close to 13,000 Twitter followers, and I'm down to below 9. Or actually, no, I'm down to below 10. It's 9,000 or something. And a huge number of them, their accounts have just gone away. And then I
wonder if they were real or if they were bots.
Well, you know, that's what they say about all the people who are telling the truth. They're bots.
Uh-huh.
They're bots. All I know is, you know, and then I go over to YouTube. All the channels I've subscribed to on YouTube. And one right after another, they're not there anymore. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. I mean, the fact that you're subscribed to them is still there. But then when you click on the subscription, their channel's gone. It's just unbelievable, the number. It's a massive purge going on. It's social media, so-called social media. I like to call it anti-social media. Anti-social media today is the modern-day book burning. So, anyway.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Tell them I said hi. Anyway, so getting back to the... before the break, we were sharing audio from Tony Bobulinski. He's the guy who came forward, and these are text messages he has. He says on 3 different phones he's getting ready to turn over, I guess, to the FBI. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I don't know who else is going to do anything with it. Obviously, the FBI probably won't. But he was holding a press conference talking about some of the things, some of the foreign grift, shall we say, that the Bidens were involved with.
Well, here are the facts I know, and everything I'm saying is corroborated by emails, WhatsApp chats, agreements, documents, and other evidence. I brought, I guess, for record, 3 phones that spanned the years 2015 through 2018. These phones have never been held by anybody else besides myself. I was told this past Sunday by somebody who was also involved in this matter that if I went public this information, it would bury all of us, man, the Bidens included. I have no wish to bury anyone. I've never been political. The few contributions I have made have been to Democrats. But what I am is a patriot and a veteran. To protect my family name and my business reputation, I need to ensure that the true facts are out there. In late 2015, I was approached by James Gilliar, whom I had known for many years, about joining him in a deal which he said would involve the Chinese state-owned enterprise CEFC China Energy and what he called one of the most prominent families in the United States. I was informed first by Gilliar and then by Hunter Biden and by Rob Walker, who was working with the Bidens, that the Bidens wanted to form a new entity with CFC, which was to invest in infrastructure, real estate, and technology in the U.S. and around the world. And the entity would initially be capitalized with $10 million and then grow to billions of dollars of investment capital. After months of discussion, I agreed at Gilliar and Hunter Biden's request to become CEO of the entity to be called Sinohawk. Sino representing the Chinese side, Hawk representing Hunter Biden's brother Bo's favorite animal. And between February and May 2017, we exchanged numerous emails, documents, and WhatsApp messages concerning Sinohawk and its potential business. On May 2nd, 2017, the night before Joe Biden was to appear at the Milken Conference, I was introduced to Joe Biden by Jim Biden and Hunter Biden. At my approximately hour-long meeting with Joe that night, we discussed the Biden's history, the Biden's family business plans with the Chinese, with which he was plainly familiar, at least at a high level. After that meeting, I had numerous communications with Hunter, Walker, Gilliar, and Jim Biden regarding the allocation of the equity ownership of Sinohawk. On May 13, 2017, I received an email concerning allocation of equity, which says 10% held by H for the big guy. In that email, there's no question that H stands for Hunter, big guy for his father, Joe Biden, and Jim for Jim Biden. In fact, Hunter often referred to his father as the big guy or my chairman. On numerous occasions, it was made clear to me that Joe Biden's involvement was not to be mentioned in writing, but only face-to-face. In fact, I was advised by Gilliar and Walker that Hunter and Jim Biden were paranoid about keeping Joe Biden's involvement secret. I also had a disagreement with Hunter about the funds CFC was contributing to Sinohawk. Hunter wanted $5 million of those funds to go to himself and his family, so he wanted the funds wired directly to an entity affiliated with him. I objected because that was contrary to our written agreements concerning Sinohawk. He said, referring to the chairman, his father, that CFC was really investing in the Biden family, that he held the Trump card, and that he was the one putting his family legacy on the line. He also said to me on May 17th, 2017, that CFC wanted to be my partner, to be partner with the Bidens. During these negotiations, I repeated to Hunter and others that Sinohawk could not be Hunter's personal piggy bank. And I demanded that proper corporate governance procedures be implemented for capital distributions. Hunter became very upset with me. CFC through July 2017 was assuring me the funds would be transferred to Sinohawk, but they were never sent to our company. Instead, I found out from Senator Johnson's September report that the $5 million was sent in August 2017 to entities affiliated with Hunter. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with the Senate committee members concerning this matter, and I will be providing to the FBI the devices which contain the evidence corroborating what I have said.
So we'll see if the FBI does anything with that. I wouldn't be turning blue on their behalf, so to speak.
Yeah, you know, the mention of the Milken Institute, that's disturbing. I encountered the Milken Institute, Michael Milken, and his interest was medical research. He established a foundation to get funding and to lobby for the medical research field. And Michael Milken is a crook. I don't care who says, oh, he wasn't doing anything illegal. Well, yes, he was. He was a crook. And so his involvement in this says to me, healthcare, which says the global health system, which is part of the global package of systems. It's energy, transportation, health, and education, and online government. Yeah. And those 5 things alone. Oh, also emergency management. Okay, so those 6 systems, if these crime syndicates, and there's more than one, obviously, but if these crime syndicates have that kind of control in every city that is of any size, or every city actually, because the global systems plan to connect everybody, then you have a world system of mobsters. So they better do something about it.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, the whole world order, the new world order, or the old world order, or the one they're trying to build anyway, it's being run by criminal mobsters. That's absolutely right. And the media is a part of that whole criminal enterprise, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely, most definitely.
Yeah.
You know what? When I think that started, really, during the anthrax attacks, because
it started before that. I mean, I think a lot of it started with CIA
It wasn't
Mockingbird.
as bad though, but at the point when the anthrax, I think probably the CIA flooded in and took over.
Yeah, you can tell just how biased the media is by judging by the questions they yelled at this guy at the end when he was trying to exit the room. I clipped a little bit of it. Listen to what they said.
Who paid for you to be here?
Who's paying for you to be here? That's the question they asked.
Who paid for you to be here? Who paid for your expenses to be here?
Thank you.
Who invited you and paid for your travel, sir?
I paid for myself.
Did Rudy Giuliani have...
Who paid for your travel, sir?
Yeah, as if that's a big deal.
Yeah.
A plane ticket and a hotel room.
Exactly.
I could even do that.
Okay, hold on. Let me back it up here. I think it's important.
I paid for myself.
Did Rudy Giuliani have anything to do with your appearance here?
Did Rudy Giuliani have anything? So what? Here's the point. Yeah, Rudy might have had something to do with it. You know what? I'll bet Rudy did have something to do with it. What's the point? Who cares? Either what I'm saying is true or it's not. And if the evidence is on the phones that he has there, on the disks, the storage disks of those phones, it doesn't matter who paid for him to be there, or it doesn't matter who arranged it. The point is that the evidence stands on its face. And they're not concerned. There's no questions. I didn't hear any questions, did you, about the actual evidence that he has, about what's actually on the phone, the substance of the actual thing? No. They want to know the political questions. Wow, this is just a political dirty trick. These people are such sleazeballs. They're such sleazeballs.
I wonder who's paying them.
Well, there you go. I honestly, a lot of it I think is their own ideology. Many of these characters, they're
probably
these people think that they are there to change the world. That is not a journalist's job. If you're a journalist, your job is not to change the world, make the world a better place. Your job is to report the truth, regardless of whether or not it fits your own personal ideology. You are to report the truth. Otherwise, you're not a journalist. You may call yourself one. Other people may refer to you as one. You may put that in your Twitter bio, but that doesn't make it true. Journalists document. That's what they do. They document. This is what happened. This is what happened. I talked to this person. This is what they said. I talked to that person. This is what they said. This is what happened in this situation. Nothing more, nothing less, but the truth of what really happened and what some party said about this. That's what a journalist does. And at one time, at least the talking heads on TV and the writers in newspapers would at least have a pretense. They would at least pretend to be neutral. They would at least pretend to try to actually sound like they're really doing real journalism. Now it's just mind-blowing. They don't care. They're all a bunch of pundits masquerading as journalists. I'm sorry for getting on this soapbox about this, but this is the reason, I'd say this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, reason why our country is in the situation that it's in. Because we have no real journalism. The only real journalists that we have are people like us. Citizen journalists, people who get on the radio or get on YouTube to the extent they still can, get on some other places, have their own platforms, and they're able to report and document and share the truth. But one thing I will say, the Wall Street Journal is coming around, Vicky. Apparently, and I don't have a lot of faith in the Wall Street Journal, to be honest with you. They're pretty much a rag. But at least Kimberly Strassel at the Wall Street Journal came out with this. She says, Joe Biden has a problem, and his name is Hunter, because the former vice president hasn't had to answer any questions on this topic. The problem could soon be America's. That's the reality now, that a former business partner of Hunter Biden's has come forward to provide the ugly details of the family brand. Tony Bobulinski, that's the guy we just heard from at the press conference. She says a Navy veteran and institutional investor has provided the Journal emails and text messages associated with his time as CEO of Sinohawk Holdings, a venture between the Bidens and CEFC China Energy, a Shanghai-based conglomerate. That correspondence corroborates and expands on emails recently published by the New York Post, which says they come from a Hunter laptop. So this is the Wall Street Journal's Kimberly Strassel saying she's looked at the evidence this guy has, and she says it corroborates what has been reported by the New York Post. In a statement, Mr. Bobulinski said he went public because he wants to clear his name. You've already pretty much heard that. Skipping down here, she says Bobulinski's text messages show he was recruited for the project by James Giller, a Hunter associate. Mr. Giller explains in a December 2015 text that there will be a deal between the Chinese and one of the most prominent families from the U.S. A month later, he introduces Rob Walker, also a partner of Biden. In March 2016, Mr. Giller tells Mr. Bobulinski the Chinese entity is CEFC, which is shaping up to be the Goldmans of China. Giller promises that that same month to develop the terms of a deal with Hunter. Note that in 2015 to 2016, Joe Biden was still vice president. As the deal takes shape in 2017, Bobulinski begins to question what Hunter will contribute besides his name, and worries that he was kicked out of the U.S. for out of the Navy for cocaine use. Giller acknowledges skill sets are missing, and observes that Hunter has a few demons. He explains that in brand, Hunter is imperative right now, but he's not essential for adding input. Bobulinski writes that he appreciates the name/leverage being used, but thinks the economic upside should go to the team doing the actual work. Mr. Giller reminds him that those on the Chinese side, quote, are intelligence, so they understand the value added.
Oh, that's interesting. That's huge right there. Chinese intelligence.
Yeah, that is interesting. This dispute almost derails the deal. Hunter is hardly visible through most of the work until final contract negotiations ramp up in mid-May. He brings in his uncle, Jim Biden, for a stake. Gillier in a text messages sues Mr. Bobulinski with a promise that Jim's addition strengthens our USP, unique selling position, to the Chinese as it looks like a truly family business. Hunter, in texts and emails, wants offices in 3 U.S. cities, significant travel budgets, significant is in quotes, a stipend for Jim Biden, a job for an assistant, and more frequent distributions of any gains. As for annual pay, he explains in an email that he expects, quote, a hell of a lot more than $850, unquote, $1,000 a year, the amount Mr. Bobulinski, the CEO, is getting, since his ex-wife will take nearly all of it. Mr. Bobulinski pushes back, warning Mr. Gillier in a text that they need to, quote-unquote, manage Hunter because he thinks that they are going to be on his personal piggy bank. The duo worried about his, quote, mental state, unquote, substance abuse, and his ability to make meetings. Hunter, in his own angry text, makes clear that his contribution is his name. He rails at Mr. Bobulinski that the CEFC heads are coming to be my partner, to be partners with the Bidens. He reminds them that in this instance, only one player holds the trump card, and that's me. May not be fair, but that's the reality because I'm the only one putting the entire family legacy on the line. Mr. Gillier privately tells Mr. Bobulinski to show flexibility since I know why CEFC Chairman Yi Jiming wants the deal and what makes it enormous. It's the family name. CEFC was closely entwined with the Chinese government and military, and now we see intelligence too, apparently, until it went bankrupt following U.S. charges of money laundering. There is no question CEFC was buying Hunter for influence. And that really right there, and the article goes on from there. I'll just leave it there. But that's not a quote from somebody else. That's the Wall Street Journal coming to that conclusion. They said there is no question CEFC was buying Hunter for influence. And they looked at the text messages that this Tony Bobulinski has. This is massive. And for all the things that people might want to say about Trump, I can tell you with confidence that if there was any pay-for-play going on here, the media would be all over it at this stage of the game. They're looking for anything they can get on him. So we've got, in my opinion, Trump is definitely the lesser of two evils. I've got my problems with Trump. But here we got a status quo globalist who is corrupt as the day is long in Joe Biden. Where does that leave us?
It's the whole international system that they set up that's corrupt.
Yes.
The system of trade, the IMF, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the whole international system is absolutely corrupt. The G7, the group of 7, and everybody affiliated with it, corrupt.
Yeah. It's funny that Joe Biden was given, he says, I've never met with, I didn't know anything about Hunter's, business deals. I've never met with any of the people, and yet I'm looking right now, and Breitbart's published a photo where Joe Biden is meeting with Hunter Biden's business associate from Kazakhstan. So, what is going on here with the Chinese communists, and what is going on with the Ukraine? That's just really, I think, the tip of the iceberg. These things are...
Right, and what went on in Russia, and what was Trump doing in Scotland? What what were the billionaires doing in Greece and Cyprus? I mean, this global system to, in my opinion, my analysis, to eliminate nation states would leave the world in the hands of a criminal syndicate, a global criminal syndicate. And, you know, the thing that really pisses me off is that the military has all kinds of money for intelligence assets to investigate this stuff. The CIA, same thing. Where are the honest people? Where are the people who are thinking, who can extrapolate, you know, and say, well, this is where we are and this is what's happening. The world is falling apart into decay and corruption. Maybe we ought to think about doing something about it. But I don't see anything happening.
Yeah, my concern is anybody who might be patriotic in the CIA certainly aren't in positions of power within the agency. They're the rank and file people, more than likely. Certainly not the leaders, not the people who are running the show. I don't know, you know, because you would hope that there would be some patriots there that would do something, that would stand up, because we are losing our country. Same thing with the FBI and all the other intelligence agencies. Come out with it, because otherwise you're not going to have a country. We got to take the bottom of the hour break, Vicky. We'll be back here in a moment, folks. Stay with us.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
All right, we're back. This is Govern America. The website, once again, is governamerica.com. That's governamerica.com. And Vicky's websites are thetechnocratictyranny.com. Don't forget to put the in there. And channelingreality.com. And we're continuing on. We're talking about the Biden corruption situation, but I wanted to get back to the debate here for just a moment. I got a little bit of audio here, because this whole thing came up during the debate, as you would imagine. And so here are some highlights.
Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And, you know, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get $3.5? I never got any money from Russia. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And, Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening. And it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family. But what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. This president paid 50 times the tax.
Okay, notice what he said. He hasn't taken it. He didn't say Joe. Right. He didn't say Hunter Biden didn't on his behalf.
He's dissembling.
Yeah, there you go.
In China, has a secret bank account with China.
I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. And your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible. I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of money...
I notice the moderator starts to interrupt at this point.
...that your family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq. Millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune. And it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it. And you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China.
What are you talking about?
I have not had...
You can't even remember what they're talking about.
The only guy who made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
But could I just one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183,000, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the Vice President respond to that quickly, and then I need to get to a question to you.
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Who investigated it? It just now came to light. Nobody investigated this.
Right.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad.
So she turns it on Trump.
A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every
Trump,
place
thank
he
you.
goes.
We do need to move on.
Yeah, you're right. She did turn it on Trump
over and over and over again. That's why I don't understand where these people are talking that she's fair. I mean, she was more fair than the previous moderator, but that isn't really saying a whole lot. That's not really setting a very high standard. Couple other debate items real quickly for those of us who are resisting mask, face diaper wearing. You better hope Biden doesn't get elected. He wants masks all the time.
What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time.
There you go. Isn't that what? Yeah. Doesn't that give us all something to look forward to?
It's so insane. I don't know why people are putting up with this. I really don't.
I got one other thing here. The moderator then asked Trump about the timeline for a vaccine. And this is the part that really disgusts me because we have both candidates basically shilling for the pharmaceutical industry. But listen to what she says about how long they're saying that people will have to wear these face diapers.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. And then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
The fluid of death, that's what I'll call the vaccine.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the pharmaceutical company. You know, to Trump's credit, he's not calling for mandating it. Biden is. But I don't like the fact that they're playing along. I don't like the fact that he's shilling for the pharmaceutical companies. I don't like the fact that this is all this Operation Warp Speed. Something out of Star Trek, I guess. I don't like how the military is being used to try to shove this down people's throats? Are they going to?
Well, they're logistics experts, right? See, that's something I really haven't talked about that much, is the military connection to all of this. And I have a lot of questions about that. I have a lot of questions about the military and real estate. I have a lot of questions about internet resellers, because they all seem to say, "Oh, I'm a veteran." Well, was the internet a workforce development program for veterans getting out of the military? You see, if you want to have a successful crime syndicate, you got to bring as many people into it as you possibly can, because then if you try to take down the whole network, then you're taking down a lot of people, and they will fight to protect their livelihood.
Yeah.
So it's really what they've done with these global systems and with our economy, trying to replace real economic activity with virtual economic activity, is really quite brilliant, because virtual economic activity can disappear overnight.
Yeah, exactly. And so can your money when it's virtual. Yeah. And that is exactly where they're headed with all of this Great Reset stuff, I believe. Anthony Fauci was on CNN yesterday. He's now saying that masks should be mandated. Let's just deviate a moment and play a little bit of that.
And Joe Biden does have a really different plan, right? And today he talked about it, and he specifically talked about making mask wearing mandatory. Here's how he put it.
First, I'll go to every governor, urge them to mandate mask wearing in their states. And if they refuse, I'll go to the mayors and county executives and get local masking requirements in place nationwide.
He also wants to make masks mandatory, federal buildings, interstate transportation. Do you think this is a good idea? Is this what a president of the United States would be helpful if they were doing, fighting for mask mandates?
Well, one of the issues that people that talk about mandating not be a good idea, because then they'll say they have to enforce it, and there's going to be a difficulty enforcing it. But if everyone agrees that this is something that's important, and they mandate it, and everybody pulls together and say, we're going to mandate it, but let's just do it, I think that would be a great idea, to have everybody do it uniformly. One of the issues, though, I get the argument, say, well, if you mandate a mask, then you're going to have to enforce it, and that'll create more of a problem. Well, if people are not wearing masks, then maybe we should be mandating it.
So he's made his position very clear. This unelected bureaucrat, why are we listening to this guy who died and made him God over the human race?
Right. And besides, his career is very questionable.
Yeah, very sketchy. Yes, everything you talk about somebody who needs an investigation. You talk about somebody who's got ties. I think Fauci really needs to be looked at. I think the source, the origin of this whole COVID-19 thing needs to be looked at very carefully with a very careful eye, when you consider the money that came from the NIH and went over to that Wuhan lab that nobody hardly seems to be talking about. Certainly nobody, only those of us in the truth media have talked about it in its various forms. Now we have, Vicky, the travel industry. The travel industry, who is being crippled by this whole economic mess that's been artificially created by the COVID-19 bullcrap. Remember, we've never done this before in our country. We've had pandemics before. We've had outbreaks before. We have never shut down the entire country because of it. But yet, they have required masks. In fact, I think it was during the 1918 Spanish flu virus, there was actually an organization that was coming out, the Anti-Mask Brigade or something like that, they were campaigning to get rid of the masks. Okay, and here we are now, 100 years ago, roughly, And we're facing the same situation all over again. Indefinite mask requirement for infinity. We're looking at this thing, and the point is, folks, is the people that are behind the scenes, that are engineering things, it never seems to, this is a way of control. It's about control.
Yeah, our public health system was infiltrated. And I don't know, there's something, I'm not sure, but it needs to be investigated, is who was doing the hiring for positions within our government. I have a couple of phone directories that I found online at Health and Human Services of a lot of foreign names in those phone directories. So, and I don't know whether they were employees or contractors, but it doesn't make any difference to me. They were not American-sounding names. That's another thing this global system did, is under the World Trade System, there's trade-in services, and governments couldn't discriminate with their national service providers from international or foreign service providers. So, I mean, you look at this stuff and you say, what the hell were these people thinking? You're contracting out government services to Indian companies or Chinese companies or Russian companies or Mexican companies. If government is doing a function, then they're doing it for the American people. But if you bring in foreigners, who will those foreigners be working for? Right. Certainly won't be the American people, that's for sure. No, it's like, oh man, don't get me started. Yeah, well, hey, by all means, we'll roll out the red carpet for getting you started. But I mentioned the travel industry a moment ago. They're pushing, because they're in financial hardship now, and they're wanting to get back to what's called normal. Will it be the new normal? And that's the thing. Everybody talks about the new normal. They talked about the new normal after September 11th too, didn't they? And this is just, in my opinion, the latest chapter in totalitarian control and manipulation to bring about a mass encroachment of your individual liberty. Right, a new normal, just moving the ball down the court towards Marxist totalitarian control. Yep. And so the travel industry is pushing for something that sounds to me very similar to a system of COVID passports. They're begging for it. Here's a report.
And the travel industry asks the Trump administration to devise a fast and effective testing plan that will eliminate the need for travel bans and passenger quarantines. The American Hotel and Lodging Association, Airlines for America, the U.S. Travel Association, and Chamber of Commerce sent a letter to the HHS, Transportation, and Homeland Security Departments today. The groups say the patchwork of individual state quarantine laws are confusing and discourage travel. They're suggesting the White House push state and local governments to look into new cost-effective pre-departure testing methods.
So there you go. We want fast testing. Well, what's more fast than people being tested beforehand and getting your COVID passport so that you can just, put your smartphone app up there and see, I got a green light. It's not red, it's green. Really a permission to travel there you go. System. That's exactly what it is. Plus, it sets up an electronic medical record for you. Yep. And it's, in my opinion, the forerunner of what the biblical mark of the beast is all about. I really believe that there are people in high places engineering the affairs of man who read the Bible and are following the path of the Scriptures to make these things come to pass. I believe that's true, Darren. I do think it is. Yeah. Because I know there are a lot of people out there that think that, the Bible predictions are coming true, but it could be that, I don't know if they were written in Bibles before the King James Bible, but
it does seem to be following the script, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, to Zadie Mom in the chat room, who was asking about how both call-in lines are busy, you may have missed it earlier in the show. I said that we had a piece of equipment fail here, and I got a backup, but I got to recable things, and so unfortunately we're not able to take calls today. So I apologize for that, but that unfortunately is just the way it is when you do live radio and you're on a shoestring budget. We do the best we can here with what we got to work with, folks. Anyway, back to the debate. This is on the subject of a new stimulus bill, which has been hung up in Congress with this phony COVID-19 hoax, and not the virus, but the severity of the virus is the hoax. They have succeeded in turning the majority of the population into government dependents. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Now deficit spending isn't just tolerated, it's lusted after like a desert oasis. I mean, everybody is looking to the government to be their savior now, and that's exactly where they want to make it. So this is on the subject of the stimulus.
What's the matter with these guys? The bill that was passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high-crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them.
Okay, now listen to what Joe Biden says coming up here.
This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question, but it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right, if I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because they have to balance their budget.
Wait a minute, he's going to lay off cops? Isn't that what you guys want at the Democratic Party? I thought you wanted to defund the police. Now you're saying you want police?
Budget, and the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
There you go. The founding fathers were smart because they allowed deficit spending.
Huh. I didn't know that. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, this is nuts. These people are nuts. But that's what they want you to believe. Hey, this is great. This is absolutely great that we can go further and further into debt. Anyway, on the subject of climate change, Biden had a particularly damaging moment, in my opinion, when he mentioned exactly what he wants to do with the oil industry. Because it's interesting how much Biden has flip-flopped on various subjects. First, he was for the Green New Deal. Then, when he gets heat over it, he's not for the Green New Deal. Then he, kind of is for the Green New Deal and says this is what is going to happen with it. So, which Joe Biden should we believe here? I don't believe any of them. But anyway, here's how the whole thing went.
Climate change and climate warming, the global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it.
No, we don't, and it's not an existential threat. Actually, it's called summer, and it happens every year.
And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time.
Okay, we're told by a lot of scientists that we have plenty of time, and the ones that tell us that we don't have much time, those are the ones you want to really look at and see where their funding is coming from, because I got a feeling that they're funded with government grants and grants from institutions that have political agendas. So, and by the way, science isn't determined by what scientists say about it.
Not consensus. That's when they moved to consensus science is when they started manipulating, because they can just say that there was a consensus.
Yeah. And again, you're not hearing from people who don't agree with the quote-unquote science.
We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years.
And how many decades have they been saying that? How many decades have they been, the world is going to be a big fireball? It's been a long, long time.
Former years of this man eliminating all the...
Actually, when I was in high school, I think they started the next ice date. First, it was going to freeze. We were all going to freeze.
Yep. And then the weather didn't cooperate with that one, so whoops, we'll switch to warming.
We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. Former years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new, good-paying jobs.
How many times have we heard that from the Obama administration? We're still waiting for all these green new jobs. I mean, the whole Obama administration, that's all he promised us, all these green new jobs, the new green jobs. We're still waiting, Joe.
We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways.
50,000 charging stations on our highways, Vicky. There's something for everybody to look forward to.
And, and I think that'll make a lot of money for the communist Chinese, because I think that's what they were investing in.
Yeah, they're going to be selling a lot of batteries.
Renewable energy at the transportation hubs. And isn't it amazing how that all fits together? Just as if it was a plan.
Yeah.
What do you know?
Boy, I'll tell you, if you want Agenda 21 on steroids, Joe Biden's your man, I'll tell you that. All right, we're at the top of the hour. Time's going by very quickly. Stay with us. Govern America continues. Don't go away.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is the third and final hour of Govern America. Vicky Davis is here. I'm Darren Weeks, and it continues to be the 24th of October, 2020, as we get right down to the crunch of the election season. And it's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. And I know we talk a lot on this broadcast about, and many other people do too as well. We're not going to change anything. We're not going to save the country through an electoral process. That's just the way it is, because the candidates that are there are not constitutional candidates. So the best case scenario, I think, in this point, in this election season, is the lesser of two evils. And I hate to say that. It's a very unsatisfying thing to say. But the unfettered corruption that's going on in the Democratic Party right now, I think it's going to be very, very detrimental to our country. You know, Vicky, I'm struck by the fact twice I have not planned on voting for Donald Trump. I didn't plan on voting for him in 2016, but I knew the corruption of the Clintons is just so bad with all the pay-for-play stuff, the quid pro quos, they set up all their organizations, the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, for the express purpose of having a pipeline of money in the form of bribes to be flowing into the Clinton coffers.
Yeah, isn't that great how they set up all those foundations? Corporations set up their own foundations. Everybody's got a foundation, and it's all tax-free money.
It's a foundation
flowing into these lobbying organizations, and it's a way to launder money, I think.
Yeah, so I hadn't planned on... I always say I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I voted against Hillary Clinton. And with all the stuff that happened during the Trump administration that made me very angry at Trump, I was going to sit this one out. But then Black Lives Matter happened. Then Antifa happened. And the violence happened all across the country. The calls to defund the police happened all across the country. And you know, if Biden gets to be president of the United States, he is going to do everything he can, as Obama did everything he could, to try to take away your firearms. And that is the one thing, I think, the single most important issue is the Second Amendment. If we lose that, we are dead, both metaphorically and physically.
Yeah,
I really believe it's that serious.
Oh, I do too. The left has been taken over. The Democrats that are in power now, they're not the old time Democrat Party, which I always had disagreements with, but not to the but they weren't communists. At least they didn't. Some of them were too liberal, way too liberal, but the people now that are on the ground, I think they're animals. Actually, I think they're Marxist animals.
Yeah, and they're useful idiots. They've been indoctrinated. We got universities all across our nation that are busy indoctrinating people. Funny, I saw just before coming on the air today. Here we see from WILX TV 10. Michigan State University provost eliminates the terms foreign and alien. Apparently now, Michigan State University, and her name is Teresa Woodruff, she announced the end of using the terms foreign and alien, according to the Morning Watch MSU. Woodruff said the following when addressing the Associated Students of MSU General Assembly on Thursday, October 22nd, just a couple of days ago. Quote, "We will eliminate from our collective lexicon the words alien and foreign. Instead, we've adopted non-pejorative terms that describe geography," unquote. And so
what the hell does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, here's what it means. Instead of using foreign and alien, Provost Woodruff suggested the usage of non-domestic or international.
What an idiot. What a freaking idiot. Jeez.
Woodruff said, has said she did this to help create a more inclusive environment. You see, somebody who's foreign, well, they don't belong, Vicky. They don't belong when they're foreign.
Why does she think that a synonym changes the meaning? It's still non-domestic.
Well, it's an unfriendly
is still
word.
Foreign.
It's not a nice word. It's not a nice, and we wouldn't want to call somebody an alien. Why, that's like calling them weird.
Yeah,
They're
from
different.
Mars.
They're different than us. We don't want to say somebody's different than us, even though they may be.
Well, we want
it all to be
the
welcome.
WTO, trade and services, everybody who works for a living is providing a service. So there is nobody who is not allowed to work in the United States, right? And if you work here, then you've got to live here. So, oh, man.
Well, I said that in the context, ladies and gentlemen, that our children, our young people, the next generation is being indoctrinated. And many of these people were talking about Black Lives Matter on the ground. These people have been indoctrinated into Marxism, into communism, and they want to take down the system because they think that capitalism is the source of all their problems. None of them, of course, know anything really about the subject matter that they're advocating. They don't know how much blood has been shed enforcing these utopian societies.
Right. When you try to regiment people into a particular behavior, a lot of people die. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact. And that's what the communists always want to do, is regiment people into roles that are defined for them and behavior that's defined for them. You know what? I'm really getting sick of all this social messaging that I hear, social instruction everywhere, on the TV, at city council meetings, the politicians. It's all social instruction, as you know, to training for us in this socialist, communist way of thinking and behaving.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, I feel like I'm going to just go postal.
Well, here's what. I obviously triggered you. Let's trigger you again. Because I see from Politico, Bernie Sanders. Speaking of communists, Bernie Sanders is making a play for Biden's labor secretary.
Oh boy.
They say the Vermont senator is interested in joining Joe Biden's cabinet should his former primary rival defeat President Donald Trump. So, you got the class envy going on with the communists. The Communist Manifesto is all about classism, and here you have your token communist. Well, he's not really a token communist. He's a real communist. This guy's come out and he said he's a democratic socialist.
Yeah.
Which is their buzz phrase for communism. They're not going to come out right now and say, "Hey, I'm a communist. I'm a proud communist." No.
Yeah, you know what? I heard Nomi Prinz say yesterday that she's a democratic socialist. So anytime you hear anybody say, "I'm a democratic socialist," they're saying, "I'm a communist."
Exactly. That's exactly right. And by the way, I do have to make one little note here. You had said that they withdrew the portion of law in that defined communism as a conspiracy to overthrow the government.
Yes.
I went back and searched it. It's still there. It's found in 50 U.S.C. Section 8.
Doesn't it say repealed?
I don't see a repealed here. 50 U.S.C. Section 841, Findings and Declarations of Fact. It says the Congress finds and declares that the Communist Party of the United States, although purportedly a political party, is in fact an instrumentality of a conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States. It constitutes an authoritarian dictatorship within a republic, demanding for itself the rights and privileges accorded to political parties, but denying to all others the liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. Unlike political parties, which evolve their policies and programs through public means by the reconciliation of a wide variety of individual views and submit these policies and programs to the electorate at large for approval or disapproval, the policies and programs of the Communist Party are secretly prescribed for it by the foreign leaders of the world communist movement. Its members have no part in determining its goals and are not permitted to voice dissent to party objectives. Unlike members of political parties, members of the Communist Party are recruited for indoctrination with respect to its objectives and methods, and are organized, instructed, and disciplined to carry into action slavishly the assignments given them by their hierarchical chieftains. Unlike political parties, the Communist Party acknowledges no constitutional or statutory limitations upon its conduct or upon that of its members. The Communist Party is relatively small numerically. Well, maybe it may have been true at the time, but I got a feeling it's grown exponentially.
Metastasized worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. And gives scant indication of capacity ever to attain its ends by lawful political means. The peril inherent in its operation arises not from its numbers, but from its failure to acknowledge any limitation as to the nature of its activities and its dedication to the proposition that the present constitutional government of the United States ultimately must be brought to ruin by any available means, including resort to force and violence. Gee, you think we got some of that going on right now? Holding that doctrine, its role as the agency of a hostile foreign power renders its existence a clear, present, and continuing danger to the security of the United States. It is the means whereby individuals are seduced into the service of the world communist movement, trained to do its bidding, and directed and controlled in the conspiratorial performance of their revolutionary services. Therefore, the Communist Party should be outlawed. That is August 24th, 1954 is when it was put into place. And it is, again, 50 U.S.C., Section 841, Findings and Declarations of Fact. I will put that in the show notes.
What's your source?
Law.cornell.edu.
Huh. Because when I looked it up, it was lined out, and it said repealed. But what that demonstrates is how easy it is to change what they say law is.
Well, I find it interesting that, as we were just talking a moment ago, and as I was reading that, what I was thinking about is, we were just talking about how these people come out and say they're democratic socialists. They don't say they're communists. So, by not identifying as communists, are they skirting this? That would be a matter. I don't think so. But
they included party identification. They'd have to put Democrat Party in there at this point, because the Democrat Party has been taken over by these people.
Well, at least a certain large segment of it, a large, more radical wing of it. I do think there are still Democrats who are moderate, and perhaps the overwhelming majority are more moderate. But it's these extremists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, who we played audio on the show from her not too long ago, where she was openly advocating taking down the system. As a matter of fact, I could probably find that audio again and play it again.
She should have been arrested for that, because that's making war on our country.
All of these people should be investigated at the very least. But again,
she should be deported. Because of the number of things how many frauds she's committed to be in this country.
Yeah, and to be into that position. Didn't she marry her brother or something?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, very bizarre. But that's where we are today. We keep coming back over and over again to this notion, that this so-and-so should be investigated and prosecuted, and that requires a real Department of Justice. It's very apparent that the other side, these communists, have been spending decades infiltrating key positions.
Yeah, and the Department of Justice does work, but it works to take down American patriots.
Yeah.
People who stand up for our country, who believe in our country.
Yep.
So, that says that the Department of Justice
is on the wrong side.
Corrupt. They've been co-opted, and from my point of view, they're done as a department. They're done as a Department of Justice. They really are an arm of these Marxist communists.
Yeah. Before the break, we were talking about the climate change issue from the debate. And Joe Biden, what he wants to do, folks, he was talking about all these charging stations he wants to put in. 50,000 charging stations, and that's just the beginning. How many trillions are they going to spend on this? These are grants, government subsidies, more corporate welfare, and for what? Because they want to eliminate the internal combustion engine. That's right. The ultimate
How many
goal.
mini nukes are they going to put all over the country? How many windmills that kill birds?
Yeah, wind turbines.
Don't work most of the time.
And Trump mentions that in here. Okay, I'll go ahead and pick it up and finish this clip.
We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs.
$6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan. That his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
A big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal. But
that's
you can't
a big
do
statement.
That. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind.
And
that's maybe the biggest statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because basically what he's saying is he is going to destroy the oil industry. Okay. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context, but the point
He didn't take anything out of context. That's exactly what you said.
Is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production. By 2050, totally.
All right. One
is he
final
going to get
question
China to do it?
No, we're finished with
is
this.
He going to get China
to our final question.
No,
we have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right. This is about leadership.
So there you go. And yeah, I heard you say not true when he said we don't give subsidies to the wind and solar energies.
We've been subsidizing renewable energy through direct money subsidy and also through the universities for research and development since the 1970s.
I do agree with Joe Biden on one thing. I don't think the oil industry has any business being subsidized. I completely agree with that. This is a profitable industry for the most part. There's no reason why they can't take their losses with everybody else if there's a downturn in the economy and things slow down. That being said, I think let's cut off all corporate welfare. Why are we funding any of these industries? If they can't stand on their own, maybe it's time for them to go away and somebody else will come up and take their place. Maybe some little guy that can do the job better.
Yeah, the problem is that they would go over to China. What they've done with these trade agreements is that they have put the government in the position of competing for corporate business. And I have a paper, I don't know if it was written by Peter Thiel or about Peter Thiel, but that was his idea, when he was setting up PayPal, is that countries would have to compete with corporations for business. And if you look at, all around the country, every time the governors actually go out and solicit businesses to move into their state. They have to subsidize them to get them to build a facility in their state. So what it turns out to be is that we have our states buying jobs.
Yeah.
Everything is flipped upside down. They have destroyed the economic and structure of government. And the system is really fascist. It's totally fascist, in terms of the high-level guys. The corporate leaders and stuff, it's absolute fascism. But for we, the people on the ground, it's communism, plain and simple.
I have a article here that was I found at the Capitol when I was attending a rally years ago. Actually, I wasn't attending it there. I was, believe it or not, driving the live truck for the local NBC affiliate, and the Patriots were holding a rally at the Capitol. And so I just happened to be there on company business at the time for my employer. But I got to walk around and see all the different leaflets that the Patriot groups had. And this was one thing that I picked up that was there. It was something from the Times of the Arklatext, September 15th, 1997. And it says, from staff and wire reports. Defense chief says U.S. freedom may have to be curtailed. Defense Secretary calls for even more preventative measures. Now, this was, again, September of 1997, 4 years before September 11th, 2001, almost to the day. I was a few days off, I missed it, but they were talking about terrorism. William S. Cohen said terrorism is escalating to the point that Americans may soon have to choose between civil liberties and more intrusive means of protection. Now, it dawns on me, Vicky, that at the time the threat was terrorism. But now, today, it's COVID-19. It's the coronavirus. Yeah. So everything in this report
about William Cohen, that he was the terrorist.
Yes,
because he was going on all the TV channels saying, just this little bit of a virus could kill thousands of people. This little bit of anthrax could kill. He was the terrorist.
It's all about the fear.
One public official that I would hang for treason, it would be William Cohen.
It's all about the fear.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
It's about scaring people to death to accomplish a political agenda, because that's the only way people are going to give it up. That's the way people are going to give up their freedom. But everything they were saying about terrorism back then, they're saying essentially the same thing today, only it's COVID-19. It's the virus. We have to do this to fight the virus. We have to make sacrifices. Then it was the camel-riding, flea-bitten sand dwellers. The people so inept that they had to take flight manuals to the airport so they could hijack a plane with box cutters, no less. I mean, think of how much ridiculous nonsense we're supposed to believe. Unfortunately, many people did. Many people bought into it. And now, half the population, I would estimate, are buying into the same kind of garbage today about this new, the threat. It's an invisible enemy, Trump says. We've got a real problem here. It's the same old playbook. And they keep doing it over and over again.
I know.
One more thing on Biden's corruption. Even CNN's John King had to admit, believe it or not, it was so bad after the debate. John King admitted that Hunter Biden was a swamp creature.
Hunter Biden, in many ways, is a weakness for the former vice president because of his work. He was I'll call it out. He's a swamp creature, like many people, trading under his family name to make money around the world.
There you go. You probably won't get truth that good off CNN. It's probably the most true thing they've said all year.
Yeah, well, there goes his career. He'll be back as the news lead in Podunk.
Well, he'll probably say that. By the way, speaking of CNN, did you see what happened to Jeffrey Toobin?
Oh, that is just God.
Jeffrey Toobin, who showed his tube on
that is
on
just
a Zoom
so
call.
horrible.
Yeah, I mean, and he says he thought his camera was off. My question was, why do you have it out? Who does that? Seriously, who does that? Apparently he does. So, I don't know. Vice called it an election simulation with different people playing different roles. When I saw that, I said, here's the problem. In the age of wearing masks all the time, it's apparently what they did. He just misunderstood. It's hard to hear people when everybody's wearing a mask. So when they told him it was an election simulation, he just thought it said erection stimulation. And so, you can see how he got confused. All right, we'll be back.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
Welcome back to the Govern America, ladies and gentlemen. Final half hour of the show, where we horrify spooks every single week. And
ourselves.
And ourselves. Exactly right. Anyway, I'll tell you what, there's some really funny business going on with regard to the election. And I think it's interesting that we talk about this, Vicky, because I think they're setting the stage. We know that part of the plan is to challenge the election after the election. We know that the transition. We talked about the Transition Integrity Project (TIP), where they were kind of holding their simulations of their own with regard to what to do after the election, what's going to happen after the election, and in case Donald Trump fails to concede. Now, I think the more likely scenario would be if Joe Biden fails to concede, and in fact, Hillary Clinton setting the stage once again, very publicly announcing that Biden shouldn't concede under any circumstance. And that right there should be a fighting words, because that's what we've always had in our country. The American people have prided themselves on a peaceful transition of power or a graceful concession of the loser, so that to maintain our constitutional system of government. Understanding, of course, that, hey, in another 4 years we can come back and try again. We didn't win this time, but we can try again next time. And we may not like the policies of the person, but we're going to get behind and rally and try to do the best they can, and hold their feet to the fire if necessary on those points where they are tempted to go astray. But this has always been the system of government that we have prided ourselves in and that we've held. And now they are blatantly undermining it with these announcements. And we also have games being played. John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence, came out, and Christopher Wray, the FBI chief, they held a press conference on Wednesday of this week. Apparently there have been messages that have been sent to Biden supporters. That at the time it was just Biden supporters, supposedly. And these messages were purportedly from the Proud Boys. So that the press conference, now the Proud Boys of course denied it. And in fact, they say it wasn't from the Proud Boys. But this press conference with these chiefs of the DNI and FBI, Christopher Wray and John Ratcliffe, were claiming that these messages were actually the work of Iran and Russia meddling in the U.S. election. The only trouble is that they ordered up no evidence. In fact, they offered absolutely no specifics on how they arrived at this conclusion, and they took no questions from reporters at the end that were assembled there. The conference, it isn't that long, so I'm going to play the whole thing. I want everyone to listen carefully and see if you can pick out any specifics on what they say.
The President has instructed the intelligence and law enforcement communities to ensure that the 2020 elections are the safest and most secure in our nation's history. We take that mandate and responsibility seriously. There is nothing more sacred in our republic than the fundamental democratic principle of...
Well, at least he called it a republic. You got to give him that.
One person, one vote. It is our duty to ensure the sanctity of U.S. elections. That includes ensuring the security of voting systems. The intelligence community's role is to identify threats and to assess the intentions, capabilities, and actions of foreign adversaries. Our duty also includes empowering the American people to understand information, or perhaps more accurately, disinformation, that they are seeing, particularly on the internet, and make informed decisions for themselves. With that in mind, we would like to alert the public that we have identified that 2 foreign actors, Iran and Russia, have taken specific actions to influence public opinion relating to our elections. First, we have confirmed that some voter registration information has been obtained by Iran and separately by Russia. This data can be used by foreign actors to attempt to communicate false information to registered voters that they hope will cause confusion, sow chaos, and undermine your confidence in American democracy. To that end, we have already seen Iran sending spoofed emails designed to intimidate voters, incite social unrest, and damage President Trump. You may have seen some reporting on this in the last 24 hours, or you may have even been one of the recipients of those emails. Additionally, Iran is distributing other content to include a video that implies that individuals could cast fraudulent ballots, even from overseas. This video and any claims about such allegedly fraudulent ballots are not true. These actions are desperate attempts by desperate adversaries. Even if the adversaries pursue further attempts to intimidate or attempt to undermine voter confidence, know that our election systems are resilient, and you can be confident your votes are secure. Although we have not seen the same actions from Russia, we are aware that they have obtained some voter information just as they did in 2016. Rest assured...
Now, I want to point out here, he says they have obtained some voter information. Well, there's a lot of voter information that's actually public information. So is that what he's talking about here? That they have obtained publicly available voter information that anybody can get? I don't know, right. Because again, no specifics.
It's kind of interesting what he's doing there from a strategic point of view. Because if you remember the whole Russia hacking the elections gambit, which is what I call it, it's a gambit, was because they wanted to build a national database of voter registration information to take that function away from the secretaries of state,
right,
and to have a national database. So they've circled it around, and now he's the reasonable person saying that, oh, it was Iran that was doing this, and a little bit on the Russian side. But it's just a full circle back around to what they originally wanted to do. And it was announced by Jay Johnson at a, let's see, when was that? He was a guest on a Christian Science Monitor breakfast in August of 2016, talking about the idea of declaring our election system as critical infrastructure.
Right.
So
we talked about that at the time.
All these years of all this stuff about our election system, it's all because they want to have a centralized national system of voter registration.
That's exactly right. We have more of this press conference.
Rest assured that we are prepared for the possibility of actions by those hostile to democracy. The great women and men of the intelligence community caught this activity immediately, and our colleagues at FBI and DHS acted swiftly in response to this threat. We are standing before you now to give you the confidence that we are on top of this and providing you with the most powerful weapon we have to combat these efforts: the truth, information. We ask every American to do their part to defend against those who wish us harm. The way you do that is quite simple. Do not allow these efforts to have their intended effect. If you receive an intimidating or manipulative email in your inbox, don't be alarmed and do not spread it. This is not a partisan issue. I've had conversations today with members of Congress from both sides of the aisle, and there is complete unanimity in the U.S. government in our resolve to combat the enemies of freedom. The President has instructed me to keep the public informed as appropriate, and you have my commitment that I will continue to do exactly that with transparency and with candor. We will not tolerate foreign interference in our elections, and we will continue to work with our many partners to disrupt and to impose costs and consequences on any adversary that attempts to interfere in our democratic processes. The efforts of the President to empower us to put towards election security over these last 4 years are working. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Director Wray of the FBI, to address law enforcement's activities.
Thanks, John. The FBI is the primary agency responsible for investigating malicious cyber activity against election infrastructure, malign foreign influence operations, and election-related crimes like voter fraud and voter suppression or intimidation. And that's exactly what we've been doing. At the FBI, we're working closely with our intelligence community partners as well as our other federal, state, and local partners to share information, bolster security, and identify and disrupt any threats. We are not going to tolerate foreign interference in our elections or any criminal activity that threatens the sanctity of your vote or undermines public confidence in the outcome of the election. When we see indications of foreign interference or federal election crimes, we're going to aggressively investigate and work with our partners to quickly take appropriate action. We're also coordinating with the private sector, both technology and social media companies, to make sure that their platforms aren't used by foreign adversaries to spread disinformation and propaganda. We've been working for years as a community to build resilience in our election infrastructure, and today that infrastructure remains resilient. You should be confident that your vote counts. Early, unverified claims to the contrary should be viewed with a healthy dose of skepticism. We encourage everyone to seek election and voting information from reliable sources, namely your state election officials, and to be thoughtful, careful, and discerning consumers of information online. And if you suspect criminal activity, we ask that you report that information to your local FBI field office. As always, the men and women of the FBI remain committed to protecting the American people, our democracy, and the integrity of our elections. We are not going to let our guard down.
Okay, so that's the press conference. Now, Vicky, did you hear anything specific about why they arrived at that opinion that there's these messages, assuming they really exist? I guess they do. But anybody could have sent them. Did they talk anything about the forensics? Did they talk anything about how they arrived at this conclusion that it was Russia and Iran that did this?
Well, certainly not. Sources and methods, right? No, it's such a fraud. On my website, The Technocratic Tyranny, on the front page, there's an article called "The Russians Hacking the Elections?" ?
Mm-hmm.
And people can go there and read. Oh, no, I called it the Russian hack gambit. And people could go there and read about the idea of declaring our election systems as critical infrastructure, which is the key for a government takeover of the system. And we've always had our states take care of the election systems.
And that's the constitutional
what this
system.
it's home scam security trying to co-opt the states and take over the election systems.
In other words, a federal power grab.
It's a federal power grab. And the elections systems, I believe, is a global system because the National Endowment for Democracy, I've talked about them before, they have the turnkey democracy. And that's what all these revolutions, the color revolutions, are. There is a playbook of things that they do once they take down the government that's in charge. If that government won't sell out their people, they generate a color revolution, and their first target is the election system. Mm-hmm. So these Marxists, at the global level, they have an idea for a global election system. That has to be what it is. You know, because we've seen it all over Europe, every color revolution. First target is their election system.
And at the same time, they target the police, trying to provoke the cops to respond. And now we have this going on here. And as a result, you found that clip from that gentleman who was in Seattle who was talking about what a mass exodus is going on in Chicago right now. Well, I mean, I say Chicago. I'm talking about Seattle. His name is Sean Reynolds. He does a show on YouTube for NW Properties. And so
interesting program. I've been listening to quite a lot of what he does, and he's a very interesting guy.
Well, I got a little bit of what he says about there's a mass exodus going on from police in the area.
I can't believe as many police officers are still employed here in the city of Seattle as they are. This past summer, if you were a cop in Seattle, you had to be thinking, oh my gosh, get me out of here. I had conversations with police officers, and it kind of went down like, if I didn't have a kid in college, if I didn't have payments to my ex-wife, if I wasn't vested, if I wasn't a few years away from retirement, you better believe I'd be out of here. So this is from My Northwest, and the title is, At Least 118 Seattle Police Officers Left Department in Mass Exodus. At least 118 Seattle police officers separated from the department, the Jason Rant show on KTTH has confirmed. In September alone, 39 officers left the force, when the typical number for that month is between 5 and 7. So what is that, 40? So 8 times, between 6 and 8 times the norm? Something like that. Even new recruits are leaving. There are only now about 1,200 officers in service for the entire city, the lowest it's been in a decade. And a decade ago, geez, what was our population? Less? Way less. And even this number is misleading. Many officers are using their accrued sick time as they begin their escape to other agencies or wait for retirement. If you've been living under a rock and haven't noticed what's happened in Seattle over the last few years, and specifically this summer, it was not a good place to be a police officer. Talked with one guy, and he basically told me, yeah, the way that we get through a shift, when you've got the peaceful protesters who are in reality violent rioters yelling at you, the way that you get through that is you pretend you're dead. Because they are saying such nasty stuff to you, and I've been there. I've been standing right there when these protesters are just screaming at police officers. It's common. It's just what they do. They're there to disrupt. And it's not peaceful. It's brutal. And to be a cop, they tell you to go kill yourself, commit suicide. It's the best thing you can do as a cop. It's the best thing you can do. That you hear that over and over and over, and you'd want to pretend that you're dead too. So that's what's going on with Seattle police. And you see police reports, but not a lot of it gets covered in the media. and you'll see 26 police officers injured. And these guys take some real whacks. I mean, how would you like to go to work and have to just face these violent scenarios when you are trying to basically uphold law and order in a big town? And guess what? Guess what kind of payback you get? Yeah, defund the police. We're going to defund you. We need less of you. We don't really need you guys around. So they're taking off. I can't blame them. I would too if I was a cop. Out of here. City of Seattle unveiled this officer separation data on Friday morning. At the same time, a developing and alarming side note. The Seattle Police Department withheld staffing numbers, ignoring a public disclosure request. Indeed, the SPD claimed a staffing issue was to blame. But that doesn't appear to be true. All right. And here's a hyperlink that I'm just going to read because this is from Jason Rantz. Seattle council member defends kill yourselves threats to cops at protest. I remember when that happened. I can't remember which one of our Looney Tune council members it was here in Seattle, but she said the rage is justified.
Okay, I'm going to cut out of it there. The whole show will be in the show notes. But, yeah, I mean, what do we expect here? You know, and the problem is, Vicky, as these communists get more and more entrenched in Seattle and Portland and our other major cities, and we talked about how Loretta Lynch went around to these various cities and got them to sign non-disclosure agreements. This is what these whole riots are about in the streets. You know, trying to provoke the cops, trying to yell at the cops, say anything they possibly can to get the cops to retaliate, and then they can accuse them of police brutality and have lawsuits filed and then force the city into a settlement, and then they can sign these agreements to modify their police department, adopt community-oriented policing services, which, as we talked about, sucks in the worst kind of element into the policing process.
Yeah, into a citizen council.
It's communitarianism. Mm-hmm. And so this is what the plan is. This is not just what the plan is, it's what they're executing. And this is our own color revolution.
Yeah, I researched community police after the Broward County episode, and I found out that they had implemented community policing. I went back and did some research on community policing. And it started in about 1991. And what seems to happen is that there is a lot of gang activity in a town, a lot of violence, and they do exactly what you just said. You know, they set the police up for a violent incident, and then they make a big deal out of it, and then they bring in the community policing.
Yeah.
And community policing it's about predictive policing.
Yep.
So they bring in the worst elements, you know, they bring in citizens to oversee the police, and you can tell that the citizens that they bring in, they've never had to face a situation like the police do. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're in a situation, you know, as a police officer, you may be fighting for your life or to save somebody else's life. They have to make split-second decisions, and, you know, sometimes maybe they could have done it a little differently, but they didn't, and so it causes a problem.
In the winning... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the whole thing is precipitated by gang activity.
Yeah, exactly. It's the mob. In the waning moments of the broadcast, NBC News is reporting... NBC News is employing, a staff member. I won't call her a journalist. She calls herself that. But she's searching out personal details about anonymous Trump supporters on social media and doxing them. In other words, releasing their own... She's digging for information and doxing these people, releasing their personal information online. And this is supposed to be a legitimate function now of NBC News. This was broke by Revolver News and Darren Beatty. who appeared on the Tucker Carlson show on Wednesday to talk about it.
Brandy Zadrozny is a, quote, reporter with NBC News. What does she do exactly? Well, by her description, her job is seeking out personally identifying information about anonymous Trump supporters online, some of them, and revealing their true identities. Zadrozny has acknowledged, quote, this: I use social media sleuthing to learn about a subject's real life, their family, friends, jobs, personal and political associations. So what does that mean exactly? What kind of information? Well, that information could include phone records, property records, even their Amazon wish lists. What is this about exactly? Darren Beatty is one of the people who broke this story. He's with Revolver News. Darren, thanks so much for joining us. So before you get into the sort of larger meaning of this, tell us specifically what is she doing? What does this mean?
Oh, she's up to no good. As you mentioned, she uses state-of-the-art proprietary technical tools to dig up personal information about anonymous Trump supporters online. As you mentioned, that includes property records, phone records, even Amazon wish lists, you name it. She'll do everything she can to unearth anonymous Trump supporters, basically so she can ruin their lives.
Why would NBC News be doing something like this? I mean, you'd think NBC's job would be to tell us the news. What do the policies mean? Why would they be going after anonymous Twitter users?
It's a great question. It really is disgusting. It's disgraceful, even by modern journalist standards. I'd love for NBC to comment on this. We see these journalists are not even acting as meaningful journalists. What they're doing is acting as commissars, a neo-Stasi, effectively, in order to crush the rebellion of the American people against their corrupt ruling class associated with the victory of Donald Trump. There's one aspect of this story that's maybe even more disturbing than what you described, and that is that Brandy Zadrozny uses this term disinformation as the pretext to go after Trump supporters and destroy their lives. I think, as many viewers have seen, disinformation is this new buzzword, this new pretext used to silence Trump supporters. What's especially dangerous about this is that it brings this force to bear in a national security context. Disinformation is a national security term. It invites the force of our own national security apparatus to silence Trump supporters domestically. And it's part of this trend that we're seeing, a broader swath of our own national security apparatus being repurposed and redeployed domestically to silence, suppress, and destroy the energies associated with Donald Trump's victory in 2016.
Okay, I'm going to cut out of it there. The entire thing will be in the show notes. But this is really frightening. I think this really takes it up a notch, a huge notch, when you have employees of a major network going after and trying to dox, in other words, release the personal details like your home address, your home phone number, that kind of thing, online. It's mind-blowing, Vicky.
Yeah, Darren Beatty is just doing a phenomenal job of exposing the technocratic tyranny.
Absolutely, and he's obviously came to prominence after Drudge became unreadable and insane. That's just remarkable.
People are talking about setting up a new version of Drudge that has actual information, because Drudge went off the rails.
Yeah. He's nuts. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe somebody's got something on him.
Maybe.
Whatever the case, he's always been establishment, but he hasn't been crazy. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for being with us, folks. We got to go. We're out of time. Pray for this republic. Do what you can to restore it. And join us back here next week. Same time, same outlet. Thanks, Vicky, as always.
Okay. Thank you, Darren.
All right. God bless you,
Have a nice
folks.
weekend, everyone.
Yep. Bye-bye.